Every business owner should be running at least 2 reports every single month as they're looking at their financial information. So I'm going to show you how to find those 2 reports in QuickBooks Online and show you some variations on how to dissect the data in different ways to give you information to help manage your business. So we're going to dive into that and a lot of the other reporting capabilities that QuickBooks Online has. Reports are actually one of my favorite parts about QuickBooks and QuickBooks Online, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Reporting your accounting information is what helps you see everything summarized in one place. It helps you start to see the numbers of everything that you've been putting into the system with the bank transactions and everything, and invoices sending out and bills being recorded and all of these, sales receipts, all these things, they all come together in reports. So the report section is what we're going to talk about today, and we're going to get into a screen share. And this is our last kind of technical video showing you how to do stuff in QuickBooks Online. And next week we have Hector Garcia here answering a bunch of questions about QuickBooks and QuickBooks Online, and we get into a lot of nitty-gritty there. We are really happy to have you here. If you aren't already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Did you know that 15 to 20% of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed? Well, I would so love it if you were actually subscribed to the channel, and make sure that you've got the little notification button clicked as well, because then you will see these videos as they come out. And I do try to make things timely to what's happening in the year. So if we've got an estimated tax payment deadline, for example, or maybe 1099 deadline, things like that, or maybe news about a certain loan program that we all know and love, those notifications will help you make sure that you've got timely information. Sometimes people watch my videos when it's way too late for them to really do anything. So I will stop talking about that, and let's go ahead and get into QuickBooks, and let's talk about reporting. Okay, so we're here again in the sample company of QuickBooks Online, and today we're going to go over to reports. And that's what we've got here in this section. So you can scroll down, you can see there's lots of different types, and they're categorized and lumped together based on the topic. So if you want reports on your sales and customers, if you want reports on what you owe, which is your liabilities and your accounts payable, if you want reports on expenses and vendors, you've got lots of different options here, okay? I typically spend most of my time in these top 3 reports for most of my clients. So we're going to go through a couple of these today. So just very, very basic. If you are a business running in any type of regular cadence, if you are in normal operations and you're working in your business every single month, you need to be looking at 2 reports. So I promised that at the very beginning, 2 reports. We talk about the balance sheet and the profit and loss. So profit and loss is the same thing as an income statement. So if you hear income statement, you hear profit and loss, exact same report that we're talking about, okay? So balance sheet and profit and loss, these 2 are very easily, you can find those very easily. I've favorited them by putting the little star by it, but in business overview, that's where you'll find the balance sheet and you'll find the profit and loss, okay? You have a lot of different ways we can break down the profit and loss. But I want to show you first. Let's start with the P&L, because this is where we spend almost all of our time. This is the report you use to help you manage your business on whether or not the income coming in is covering the expenses in your business, okay? So when you sell things to customers or to clients, money comes in, it shows as income on the P&L, and then all of the expenses that it takes to produce that income, any cost of goods sold, any labor, any regular general expenses are going to show up on the profit and loss. So that's just a super, super basic example of what a profit and loss is, or a description of what a profit and loss is. So that's just a really, really basic description of what a profit and loss is. What you get at the end of the profit and loss is you get net income. So that's the result of the profit and loss. But when you're running a P&L, and I'm just going to use that terminology going forward, when you're running a P&L, you need to think about some really key things, and that's up here in the corner. So all of this information up here in the corner is what you need to consider before you look at any of the data in the actual report, okay? And the very first thing you want to think of is, what period am I analyzing? So I am recording this in April, and it's mid-month. My financials, I know that I don't do bank reconciliations except for once a month, and that's at the very end of the month, because that's when the bank statements are ready. So I know that technically April data is not complete. So what I'm going to look at is if I want to see how I'm doing year to date, I'm going to change the date range. So it's going to go January 1 to March 31st because I know that's the last completed period. And I'm also running my business on cash basis. So I'm going to go ahead and run the report based on cash basis. Okay. So this is just a very standard P&L. There's a bunch of you can customize the dates, and then there's a bunch of kind of preset things you can do in here. So I use this a lot. Sometimes I'll just go in here and go last month. If I just want to look at last month, run report, and it'll show me only March. If I want to see last quarter, it's going to say from the day you are today, what is the last quarter? So last quarter was Q1. So if I run that, it'll say January through March 2022. So these presets are really helpful to get reports really quickly, but you can always customize a date range. So let's say you wanted to see the last 12 months in the data. You can run that really easily in here. So I would go all the way back to 4/1, and I can actually just type directly in here, 4/1 of 2021. Okay, and then I can run report. Sometimes it'll refresh and run that for you. The thing with this Craig's Landscaping and Design is they don't have a full year of data in here. So QuickBooks, if you could not do that, that would be great. So this is your P&L. This is where you're going to spend most of your time in your reporting. A couple other things I like to do here is I like to display columns by months. So display columns by. You can do this by quarters, weeks, days. I think months is the most helpful because most of us run in a monthly cycle. So this is where I can see, income by month, everything by month. And it's a super helpful report. Every single client I work with, whenever we do a financial review, we look at a P&L by month. This is something that is extremely critical to analyzing the monthly cadence of a business. Okay. So I also want to show you a couple other things. So let's say I want to look at last quarter because I want to look at Q1. And I'm going to take it and just do totals only. So it's showing me everything from Q1. Let's say I want to compare that to a previous period. I have a comparison, so I don't have to do this manually, which is so great. So it's going to take the previous quarter. So if I said I'm running the report based on a quarter, it's going to take the previous quarter of data. So it's going to give me Q4 of 2021. Now, if I wanted to change that and I wanted to do a previous year, I could easily do that. And I could compare it to Q1 of 2021. Okay, there's the prior year. That's what PY stands for if you see that in your reporting. PP stands for previous period. All right, so that is just giving you a really high level on what to do with your P&L. Now, I wanted to spend the most time on the P&L because I feel like that is where I functionally spend the most time with my clients when we're reviewing. And that's what I find to be the most helpful because this gives you all the activity that's been happening in the month. So you can go in here and spend some detailed time looking at, what was this expense? What was that expense? What was this? What was that? And that will help you, make any changes for the future. Okay. So the next thing that I think is extremely important for every business to look at every single month is the balance sheet. And this one doesn't get as much attention as it needs. But this one is also very critical to the running of the business. So one thing you always want to do is you want to change the date. If you're looking at the March 31st P&L, you also want to look at your balance sheet through March 31st, okay? And then this date range, this is the critical date, this ending date for a balance sheet. This beginning date is really only going to change, like I could make this number the day before, and it's going to give me all the exact same information. What it won't do is once I click on this, it will only give me any activity happening between that date range. So if you want to see a full year or you want to see year to date, make sure you change this beginning date. When you go to click on something that's happened here, it will give you the detail of anything happening within that date range that you're pulling for the balance sheet, okay? Something to think about. So I'm not going to go into how to read a balance sheet because I feel like that's a totally separate video. But the balance sheet gives you all the balances on your assets or your liabilities. So this tells you how much is in your checking account at a date in time, at a point in time. Okay, so if I'm reviewing this on April 21st, I cannot assume that I still have 2102 in my checking account unless that's account I never ever use. This checking account is probably something that gets lots of activity, and I need to remember that these balances are at a point in time. They're at the ending date of this report, okay? So, go through and look through this report because this shows you what is in your accounts, and this is another reason why we want to kind of do our bank reconciliations in a timely manner, and we want to do a financial review in a timely manner. Because if I look at my balance sheet and I don't look at my financials until 3 months later, it's not really all that helpful. So a timely review of your balance sheet is critical. What you're looking for on balance sheet too is like anything that looks off or odd, any liabilities that are creeping up that should not be there. Or maybe if your credit card is getting a super high balance and you're starting to feel like maybe you don't have cash to cover it, that's a major concern. If you're looking at this on accrual basis, you'll also see accounts receivable, so you can flip through that so you can see everything that you have outstanding right now with your, or at that point in time, with your customers. So lots to do on the balance sheet, but this is showing you kind of what do you own and what do you owe. Okay, that's what you own is your assets, what you owe is your liabilities. Okay, balance sheet, super critical. Definitely look at that every single time. So the next thing that, and then if you want to dive deeper into, balance sheet comparisons, you can do what I like to do is I like to do the previous month. So if I'm looking at, let's see, last month, and then let's do a previous period. I'm doing cash basis. So this tells me all the movements in the balance sheet between last month and this month. And when I say movements, I mean, okay, I can see that the checking account was $4,179 and now it's 2,101. So there was a change of a loss of $2,078 in my checking account. So that was a movement. I also see that undeposited funds has increased. That's actually kind of a problem. We don't want that to be a huge amount of money there. I'm seeing that the credit card is going up from February to March. That's also a concern. So we have two problems here. Cash is going down and credit card debt is going up. I'm not feeling like that's a positive movement just from a CFO perspective. We would want to see that if cash was going down, that debt was also going down. So this is a net negative movement for this business this month. So that's just kind of a way that you can compare. You can compare periods, and you can kind of see, are you trending in the right direction? And I feel like a balance sheet comparison, it can be really, really helpful for that. Okay, let's also look at a couple other things. So a couple of the reports that I really wanted to point out to you guys were AR aging and AP. So AR stands for accounts receivable. And if you're doing your invoicing in QuickBooks, this AR aging is something you should run every single month. It's very easy to run, and I actually do this sometimes as of the date that I'm running it, and then I will also look at it as of the end of the last month. So I can see, like in this situation, that all of the bills were current, and then I can see that we've got a few stragglers. So these would be the people that you need to follow up with. So Red Rock Diner over here, Cookies by Kathy. These people are late payers, and you want to check in with them. You need to keep most of your accounts receivable as much as possible as current as possible. So this accounts receivable aging summary is what will show you those things. And if you see that you said, hey, actually Red Rock Diner did pay me, why is it on the aging? That means that it didn't get properly matched when the cash came in, that it didn't get properly matched in the accounting system. So you'd have to go back and do that. Okay. So it's really good to make sure that you're keeping this accurate and that this truly represents people who need to still pay you. Now, similarly, if you're keeping track of your bills in QuickBooks Online, you will also be able to use the AP accounts payable aging summary. So same thing, check your dates here because we need to know as of a certain date. But this would be showing any of your bills that you have in the system. Now, if you're not putting your bills in the system, you're not going to have an AP aging summary. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Some people don't keep their bills in QuickBooks Online, and that is okay if you have them managed some other way, or maybe you just have things on auto pay and you don't have a lot of accounts payable besides maybe a credit card or something, that's totally fine. We have some businesses that run like that, and it's not a concern. But if you do keep AP, this is another thing. So you can keep track and make sure you're not going to be hit with fees. You're not going to be hit with penalties for late payment on your stuff. Okay. So those are kind of the top reports. And I just want to remind you guys as we're wrapping up here to scroll through all these other reports and look through and see and start clicking on things and just see like what do you think would actually be interesting? Okay, go in here and click on it. If I see if I see AR detail, how is that different from the summary? And this is where we can actually see the individual invoice numbers, okay? So there's lots of different things in here. Play around, go and find stuff. And I want to remind you guys that your reports are only as good as the data in. Just remember the garbage in, garbage out principle. If you do not have good data coming in, you will not have good reports coming out. Okay, so remember that the bookkeeping is important, that what you decide to do with your tags or with your classes or with your chart of accounts, all of that stuff matters, because if that's not set up correctly or you're not using it in any kind of consistency, the reporting feature becomes less helpful. Okay, well, I hope that was helpful for you guys, walking you through a few reports that we think are really important, and how to run them, things to consider when you're running reports. And feel free to just explore, see what's in there. Go ahead and click on every single one, change the date range, and see what you think would be helpful. What information does your system have that could be helpful to you? Or is there maybe a little bit more detail you need to be adding in your accounting so that you can get better reporting? All right, these are some things to think about. Well, thank you so much for being here. And if you haven't already liked this video, please do so. We much appreciate it. I appreciate it. So thank you so much. All right, bye.